It's time for another Dirt Daily, and I am back in Michigan at Steer Smarts. Steer Smarts is a company that makes steering components forged and machined in America, which is kind of cool. We got a chance to go check out their forge and manufacturing facility. But we're back in the shop because we have 1 week before this truck has to be in Canada at my buddy Tony's wedding. What's left to do? It looks like everything is left to do, but we actually are pretty close to dropping the cab onto the chassis for the final time. We have to finish the exhaust, the fuel lines, drive lines, brake lines, any lines that live underneath the cab, and most of them are done. We have to kind of finish up a few things so that we can get this cab bolted down and be final, because then we have to move on to mounting the bed on the back of it, because the bed is going to be used at Tony's wedding as the bar and maybe the dance floor, and who knows what else the bed will be used for. But today's project is I'm going to work on the exhaust, and then I don't know, I have to look at the list because there's like 1,000 things that need buttoned up, and all of them are probably about 98% there. So let's get this thing wrapped up. We have 1 week and then we're headed to Canada. Oh, and Tony's not here this week. Tony had to leave and go prep the wedding stuff, location, whatever it is you got to do when you're getting married. But I have Mike. Mike's out there in the shop somewhere. So I'm going to track Mike down, and we are going to keep working on this thing so that in 1 week we can load it up, head to Canada, and have fun at Tony's wedding. Let's get to work. I'm working on the exhaust, and this is not the most ideal setup because I have this down pipe that fits perfectly behind the oil pan in front of the transmission and down the passenger side. So I decided I'm going to reuse it, which is kind of this old rusty piece. But behind that, we have a whole plethora of stuff from our friends at Magnaflow. This is what I've put together so far, and there's a clamp that goes right here, and then a reducer, and then a piece of tube, and then one of their mufflers. You can see my beautiful assistant Mike holding, stay there, holding some of the pieces that we have. Like this is the type of clamp that we'll be using. It's like a ball and socket, and then this piece will come on here. Wait, this goes, come on Mike, let's get our act together. This goes like that, and then this goes, don't drop everything Mike, this will go like that. So that'll all clamp together, and you can have a little bit of angle adjustment, but that will be a nice tight seal in there. And then behind that we have some little reducers, enlargers, depending on what tubes we're going from. The stock tube is like 2-inch, and this stuff is probably 2.5, so we have a little step up. We have various different size tubes with bends or straights, and they sent 3 different Magnaflow mufflers. These are basically straight through mufflers with some dampening around the outside. So I'm actually going to go with the smallest one so that it fits everything nice and clean. I could probably fit a larger muffler, but for now I'm just going to go with the small one, and then packaging will be that much easier. Hopefully down the road we can redo the exhaust, or maybe if we ever go to a bigger engine we could put a different exhaust on for Magnaflow. But for now we're going to stick with this. It'll work out fine. I don't know how loud this engine's going to be, how loud this exhaust will be. I prefer exhausts that are quiet, but the young kids nowadays who work as assistants, they think everything needs to be loud and noisy. Shh, quiet. All right, that's how it's going to go. I'm going to weld this all together and then bolt it in, or not bolt it in, well, bolt some of it in, and then I'm going to have to come up with some exhaust hangers. But it's going to basically run down the passenger side under the fuel tank. I don't usually like an exhaust dump that's right underneath the bed because it just blows up a bunch of dust. I'd prefer to route it all the way to the back, but seeing as we're on a time crunch, we might just have a little dump in front of the rear axle. Don't touch that, Mike, it's hot. You're doing a good job. Yay. We have 6 days left before the CJL-10 has to go up to Canada for the wedding. And today was a good day. We got the cab back on the frame for the final time, I hope. It doesn't have to come back off. We're putting the roof back on. Today, what I was waiting on was a shifter for the transmission, and I finally got the shifter, and of course, the shifter was made for a 60s to 70s Mopar TorqueFlite 727, not an 85 Jeep TorqueFlite 727. I got it to work, but I needed an extra part that I didn't have because the shifter arm was different, which is situation normal. We had to modify some things. The shifter arm that I needed, we actually tracked it down in town. One of the guys that works at Steer Smarts is going to bring it to work tomorrow, so that's perfect. Tony's crony Roland, he showed up and he was awesome. He changed the oil in the engine, dropped the pan and changed the filter in the transmission. I put the new oil in the Atlas. Both front and rear axles are topped off with gear lube. We hooked the brake lines back up and started filling up the brake system with brake fluid, looking for any leaks. So far, no leaks. We do have one drip from the old pan on the TorqueFlite 727. Who knows? Like that transmission, I'm crossing my fingers that it's actually going to run. The fluid in it was kind of glittery, so we might be winching it onto the trailer and off the trailer to get it to the wedding and then fixing that problem later. But for now, the thing's coming together. We're gonna put the clip on the front and see how that looks. There's still a lot of work to do, but I wanna have the front end all buttoned up by the end of the day tomorrow so that we can turn this thing around and get to mounting the bed. I don't really feel like mounting the bed's gonna be that difficult, but I just want to try to have everything else dialed in first and then build some sort of structure so that the bed floats up above the chassis a little bit. I want to have enough up travel, but I don't want it to look super goofy being too tall. But that is for next week, Fred's problem. Right now, these guys are going to make sure the cab bolts back on. Here's the other issue is like some of the guys that came to help earlier in the project took the cab off, and now we have different guys that came to help are trying to put it back on, but we're figuring it out. It's a pretty simple Lego project truck. You guys got anything important to say?
I like Jeeps.
Mike likes Jeeps. All right, we're gonna get back to work.
Yeah, exactly. They say no. Three more. Right. I'm guessing now probably. What? One bolt through. I suspect we would have been one right here.
hot. I think I like it higher because this is so much higher. Yeah.
That's true.
That's higher than this is right now. Last night we stayed late and I built a battery tray in the back of the CJ-10. And I did that because the factory battery tray that went on the front of the firewall, when we raised the fenders, the inner fender was getting in line with the battery tray and it didn't really fit. Plus I had this big heavy duty battery that I had brought with me from home and I wanted to make that fit. So I put the battery tray in the way back, and then today I realized buying 2-aught battery cable to run all the way up to the front was going to cost a bunch of money, but it's going to live there anyway. So then my buddy Eric stopped by and he helped with some wiring. He's an electrical engineer and he really enjoys working on the electrical side of it. He kind of geeks out on it, which is awesome because not that I don't like doing wiring, but he really likes doing it, so we can kind of hand projects to him. The goal is we wanted to have the truck turned around so we could work on the bed, but then we realized we should just put the bed on the lift and roll the truck forward. So that's what we did. We pushed everything forward, we got it rolling, and we put the bed on the lift, and then we tried different heights. Remember when I talked about the suspension is still going to go up, and we wanted about 9 to 10 inches of space between the frame and the bottom of the bed? Well, we decided that that was too much. Mostly because it just looked goofy, like the bed was another 2 inches up here, and I felt like it needed to be lower. So we put the fuel tank in, and I had like found this 45-degree filler neck for the fuel tank, but it was hitting. So we removed that and went back to the original style. So we're going to have to come up with a different solution for the fuel tank. But we kind of tried different heights, having the bed here, having the bed up there is closer to that 9-inch height, and pushing the bed way down almost to the shock towers. We realized that just looked a little bit too low. So this is probably our final height, which is, it's pretty high, but you could actually reach inside and reach the bottom of the bed, which is kind of nice. It really gives it that kind of Unimog look where like the bed is way high above the tires. And the other thing is that the body lines on this truck are all over the page. We moved this fenders and hood up, so this body line doesn't match this body line. This body line doesn't match this body line. And now our bed body line doesn't match anything. And I thought, well, maybe this inner fender and the bottom of the bed would be pretty close, but even that's a little bit off. So not a single body line on it. So I'm just going to go with the fact that none of them are going to match because they're kind of all over the place. But again, farm truck, so who really cares? I think it looks cool. I think this is a good height. You can still look inside the bed. You can still reach inside it. Plus it has those bed sides that fold down so you can load stuff in and out of it. And we still have a good amount of tire clearance between the tire and the bottom of the bed. So the rear suspension can still compress a lot. If it really turns into a problem, we could either come in here and modify this bed rail, cut it up some, but I'm really not too worried about it. I think it's just going to be what it's going to be. And I think the stance is pretty good. Everything's a little bit funky, but I guess that's why it's cool. So tomorrow they're having a open house here at Steer Smarts, a crawlers and coffee. So we really wanted it to kind of be sitting in its final form-ish. It's not finished, but this gives people an idea of what it's going to look like when it's all done. So the next step is to measure how far up off of the frame The bed's gonna sit and then start building a whole structure off of the frame that the bed can sit on and attach to. I don't know if the bed's gonna be welded to that framework or just come up with some sort of plates that bolt it all together. Then we'll figure out a rear bumper and the wiring to the rear end for some tail lights, as well as running that expensive 2-aught cable all the way to the front. So there's still more routing that has to go back and forth. I finally got the shifter together, and so then there's just 1,000 little things, building a front bumper, building a rear bumper, figuring out a new filler neck for the fuel tank because the one that I had isn't gonna work. But it's coming together. Today is Friday night, and we wanna have this thing done and on the trailer Wednesday night. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 days to finish it. I think we're pretty close. There's still a lot of stuff to do and a lot of figuring out to do, but I think we're pretty close. We're getting there. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. There you can see where the battery is living. So we're gonna have to build a bumper of some sort, and then you can see how the top rail of the bed fits right underneath the window rubber. That's kind of our goal, is to have that sitting right there. So if anything, it might come down a little bit more. And the fuel tank will live down in here, but the fuel filler neck that I had laid out isn't going to work. There's some of the tail light wiring that's hanging down that Eric's been working on, and cab is looking funky, and here you can see how the body lines runs across here, drops down to there. Oop, it comes back up here. Oop, it comes down here. And everything's funky. Today was Saturday. Today is Saturday. And this morning, today is Saturday. This morning at Steer Smarts, they had a thing called Crawlers and Coffee, where a bunch of people came and brought their rock crawlers and their Jeeps and kind of saw the project that we're working on. We handed out some posters and coffee and donuts. And around noon, everybody left and we could finally start getting to work. Which is great because we had fun, we got to talk to people, we got to show them the project, but now we're actually getting stuff done. Today's project for me is to work on these front fenders. If you stand here and you look at it, you can see that as the tire comes up, it's going to crash into that fender. So I've already removed some inner liner stuff, and I've also figured out that the front part of the fender unbolts. There's also a turn signal in that bottom hole, but that is all going to go away, because this one I've already started trimming. I basically cut it off and got rid of the turn signal, and I'm gonna cut all of this metal up to at least there, so that when the tire comes up, it doesn't eat the whole fender and destroy everything. So I'm slowly massaging this to get the exterior look that I want, and then I will trim this somehow to make it nice and flow, and then get rid of all this stuff down there. Meanwhile, we put some things together. This is the old battery box, and it's gonna hold the air compressor for the air lockers. Here are the air hoses. They're just kind of hanging out up here. I tracked down some 2-aught, 2-0 cable, and I ran it the whole length of the chassis Here you can see it, and it comes back to the battery in the back. This is Eric. Eric he's an electrical engineer prior with Jeep and now with Ford, and he's helping us with the wiring of all the tail lights and all the headlights and making the thing run. And it looks 1,000 times better than it did when it had a CJ-10 tub on the back. So everything's coming together. This is kind of a cool trick that I want to show. I kind of thought it was neat. This is the end of a sway bar link. So it has a bushing, like a rubber bushing, and then a steel sleeve. And I'm using this as like a terminal at the front of the Jeep. The battery's in the back. I run this big 2-aught wire all the way to the front, run a bolt through it, and then there's a short little wire that jumps off of this and goes to the starter. And then when I put a winch on the front, I can bring that wire right to this. So this big heavy gauge wire will haul all the power up to the front, and then it's all insulated, but it gives us a terminal that we can wire other things off of if we want. So I don't know if an electrical engineer would approve that, but I think it's kind of neat. And there's a bunch of other wiring spaghetti that Eric is working his way through. Check this out. You can see how the wire for all of the cab lights are as crimped and insulated and looks awesome. So I can't wait for that to light up. So we're slowly chipping away at it. It's Saturday, Wednesday night, this thing has to be done. The bed is still floating up on top of the lift, but that's because we want to get more things done below it. I'm going to get this front headlight fender thing trimmed and ready so that then I can build a front bumper and we can mount the front grille and everything solid 100%. And then we can figure out how the bed is going to mount and how a rear bumper is going to work. So we're chipping away at it. It'll be down to the wire because it always is, but it's coming out really cool. A lot of people consider the CJ-10 to be one of the ugliest Jeeps because it doesn't have the normal 7-slot grille with the 2 round headlights. I don't know if it's the ugliest Jeep. There's a lot of ugly Jeeps, but the funny thing is that I seem to be drawn to a lot of the ugly Jeeps. People say the forward control is ugly. I have one of those. People say the bullnose Jeep Commando is ugly. I think that's one of the cool looking ones. And the CJ-10, it has headlights and turn signals out here on the fender, and it has 10 slots, which makes people think, oh, this is ugly, it's not a normal Jeep. The problem that I've found is that, for one, the turn signals are almost impossible to track down. So these were the turn signals that were in here. So it was a round slot, a round peg in a square hole, and that wasn't right. And then the original ones, like everybody just has a hard time tracking them down. And so I didn't have those. And the other problem is that the tire is going to come up and just eat all of this sheet metal right here. So I started trimming this side, and it's turning out pretty good. It's tucked up a lot higher. It just has the headlight. The turn signals will just have to come up. Maybe we'll even reuse these and put them like on the winch bumper or something. But the turn signals have to go away from out here. Is it making it better looking or even more ugly? I don't know. I'm not really concerned about it. I think it looks kind of cleaner because it's kind of all tucked up, and the tire is going to be easier to get to rocks and trails, obstacles. But that's today's project, is to finish trimming this one out so that it matches both sides. Luckily, this whole front section just lifts off. So I cut the one, and then I'm going to just duplicate it on this one so that hopefully when you're standing in front of it, one side isn't up higher than the other. Trimming body work is always stressful for me because you have to kind of get it just right, or you get the arcs a little bit weird. I try to use things that are round. Like I want the back of this to come and like curve up into this, and I'm trying to like get a nice curve. So I'll find things that are round, piece of pipe or a roll of tape, and I'll kind of mark it and then try to cut it. And usually I'm cutting it with a cutoff wheel on a grinder, and then I'll go back in with like a sanding disc and try to finish it. So I cut it big and then sand back to the mark. So today I'm going to get this one done so that they both match, and then maybe we'll start moving on to putting the cross member in that supports the front of the grill, and maybe laying out the front bumper. Start getting onto that winch bumper, because it's going to be a bunch of work to get it to be where I want it to be and look the way I want it to look. All right, back to work. Trying to get these two headlight covers to be identical from side to side and get the curves just perfect to match. And it's tricky because they both have like multiple angles. It's like difficult because there's like this front face and it's angled out, and then it kicks back, and then it kicks back again. And I'm trying to have it kind of swoop down and curve around and look right. Look identical from side to side, and it's just all tricky. But I think we're pretty close. I think the bottom corner here needs a little bit more massaging, and I don't know. It's really hard to do this because I'm doing it by hand and I'm doing it by eyeball, and I'm just trying to be like, they're both the same. They're both the same height up from the ground? Are they both the same height down from the headlight? Are they both have the same curves as it swoops from here down into there? And then on the side, this is going to be trickier because I want it to come back and then tie into the curve that is already made in the fender for the tire, and then hopefully duplicate it side to side. The only benefit of the side cuts is that there's never going to be a place where someone's going to stand and be able to see both side cuts, because this side could be a little bit tighter curved than that one. So you can cheat a little bit from side to side. The front is a problem, or is a challenge, I guess, because you can stand here, you can be like, oh, well, this one swoops out more before it goes up, and this one is more gradual curve. And so you can't hide these two. These two have to be as perfect and identical from side to side as possible. So we just kind of chip away at it, measure things, measure to the ground, measure to the headlights, look at the curves, hold them up. You can take them off and kind of mirror them to each other and kind of see if the curves match. And then at the end of the day, you just put them on and say, that's good. Stand way back over there and you'll never notice it. Here. See, it looks great now. Can't even tell that they're maybe off just a little bit from side to side. All viewing of the CJ-10 truck has to be from 15 feet. I'm moving on to the front bumper of the CJL-10. I put in this cross member. This is the cross member that holds the front grille on the front of the Jeep. This I actually cut out of the CJ-10 chassis, and I'm welding it into this chassis. Then I have another thing to show you. When I bought the CJ-10, it came with the iconic worn 8274 winch. This was part of the deal. The guy threw it in. I don't know if it works, but it's awesome. These winches are great. And I had a pretty cool winch plate that is actually embossed on the front with a W right here. This is an old school worn winch plate specifically for an 8274. So this I want to live up here. However, if you look right here at my finger, there's a white spot. That is where the frame rail ended. So I came up with a way to stretch the frame rail. Basically, we wanted to make it, I mean, you needed about 4 or 5 inches longer so that the winch could fit in here, not crash into the grill, and we could still attach the winch plate to all of this. And the problem we ran into was we couldn't find tubing to attach to this. So we tracked down some 3x6 quarter wall tubing. And so it's 3 inches on the outside, 6 inches tall, and we needed something that was about 2.5 inches on the inside and about 4¼ inches tall. So I had Mike take a piece of this tubing and rip it in half and basically delete about 1 inch in the middle so that we could clamshell it together on the top and bottom of the stock frame. And then you'll see there's holes drilled in here. Those will all be plug welded. We also notched some of the tube so that we could get a really nice weld in and lock it into the old frame. The top of it is cut out because the grill needs to sit down as low as it can on this. Even adding that 1/4 inch of material gets the grill sitting up at a weird angle. So to keep everything level, this is all notched out, but then that actually gives us more places to weld in. And depending on how I like it when it's all done, I may add another fish plate that will tie in to the original frame back here around this piece of tubing. So there's a lot going on, but I needed more frame rail. It needed to be longer. The stock frame rail with those little plates on it still wasn't long enough, so we lobbed all that off. We cut everything off. We cleared off all of the brackets. The brackets for the front sway bar are deleted. Those will have to be reinvented and put back on down the road somewhere. But for now, I basically have all these parts clamshelled together, and this one is already tacked in. The top is tacked on, and I tacked on the bottom. This side, the top is tacked on, and then I just have the bottom clamped on. So next thing I will do is go around and tack weld all of that. Once it's all where I want it, I'll mock up the winch plate again, make sure everything clears, and if everything's clears and everything's happy, then I can burn in these 2 frame rails, and then we can work on attaching the winch plate to the frame rails, and then I'll probably do some other contraption to give it a little bit more width. It's going to be a stubby bumper, but it's going to be, I want it a little bit wider than the actual frame rails themselves. So front bumper project is a huge project, but because I've been waiting so long to get to it, it's actually been good. It's given me a lot of time to kind of brainstorm and think about how I want it and do some doodles and drawings and ideas. So hopefully it turns out as cool as I think it is in my head. And if it doesn't, it's a farm truck, and so it can be ugly. All right, let's do some welding. The shop is a total disaster. There's stuff everywhere. Front clips over here, there's tools on that cart, there's electrical stuff, the bed's up there. But it's time for me to get out of the shop for tonight. The front winch bumper is coming together. It has a long way to go, but you can see the winch plate. You can see where the frame was extended. It's welded to the extensions, but that's not nearly enough to hold it in place. So it's going to get a bunch more welding and grinding. But it's coming together. Another day or 2 or 3, and then this truck has to leave. So it looks like it's completely torn apart and nowhere near ready to leave. It's close to ready to leave, but it's not near there yet. I think it's time to put the front clip on. We have the air lockers plumbed. We have all of the tail lights and the engine wiring sorted out. Most of the power steering stuff, we have to get another hose. The transmission cooler lines are waiting for the radiator to be there to plug into that. The shocks are mounted, the heater hose are mounted, the coolant hoses will wrestle in once we have the front clip on. The winch front end is started, which is what we needed to do. We have to get all this stuff underneath the front grille. So all of that needed to be figured out. That's done. I don't think we're missing anything. I mean, we're missing lots of stuff, but I think we're at a point where the front grille clip can go on, fenders can go on and be done, and then we can finish plugging things together with it on. Any questions or concerns? None out of you?
No, I'm doing good.
Okay, you're doing good. Tony's back for a minute.
Yeah.
Come over here, Tony. You're not even on camera.
I'm back for a minute.
Tony's back for a minute. He actually stopped in to change some tires, and then he ended up putting ball joints on his Jeep.
That's true.
So, Eric, our electrical genius, just off camera, is chomping at the bit to finish wiring the front end. So we got to get the front end on this thing, because then he needs to go home and get ready to go to the wedding too. Everybody's going to the wedding, but we got to have this truck at the wedding. So, all right,
just push it.
Let's
We
put
need
this
the beer at the wedding.
right. Let's get this front clip on, and then I can build the rest of a winch bumper. All right.
You're a really good supervisor.
I know. I'm doing good at supervising. I never get to. I'm usually like a one-man army at home.
Daisy.
I'm assuming these are the bolts?
Yes. Before you put that one in, let's make sure, like, side to side, we're happy, and fan shroud is happy, and everything's looking pretty happy. Are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy.
I'm so happy.
You guys aren't mic'd up, so I'll just answer for you. We love it. Working with Fred is the best thing ever.
He never gets mad.
He never gets mad. He never yells at us. He never threw any tools at us.
He brings us to the brewery.
He took us to the brewery every day for lunch. What a great guy. It's Tuesday. I need to leave. I need to load this thing up tomorrow night, Wednesday at midnight, so that Thursday I can get it up to Canada. But we still have a lot to do. The bed is still not on the CJL-10. We have not heard it run, though most of the wiring is done. We have to do a little bit more plumbing. I'm still working on a front bumper. And today, Mike is going to do the install of all the Steer Smarts components. New track bar, new drag link, all this stuff that we have here in front of us. And since Mike works at Steer Smarts, I said, Mike, why don't you do the install? Because you know what everything is, and you can explain why you would use this thing and that thing.
Yeah. Let's run through it.
You can run through it with them. I'm going to go put a bed on this truck.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
Let's get to work.
So, in order to set this Jeep up right, we're getting Fred the full package here. So first up, we got the tie rod. We have a Pro Series aluminum tie rod here. We know Fred's going to be bopping down the trails. The nice thing with the aluminum, it doesn't hold the bend like steel does, so it'll be nice and durable for him on the trail. Next up, we have the Ultimate Dana 60 drag link ends. It has specific ends in order to match with the tapers of the knuckles. Next, we have our Pro Series track bar with polyurethane bushings and our low profile clamps. Again, the polyurethane is going to hold up a lot better than the rubber on the trail and on the road, so this will give them a nice long life on the track bar. Similar, we have our rear track bar, which is actually a special combination for the Ultimate Dana 80. It has that bigger differential in the back, so we want to make sure that it clears everything, doesn't crash while he's riding down the trail. For the track bars, we have our 9/16 bolt upgrades, so that way it's snug in that hole. It's not trying to wallow out that hole, no sort of movement at all. We have our sector shaft brace for the big bore on the PSC box. This protects that investment of that big bore box, corrects the steering, corrects the motion of that pitman arm. For the PSC, we also have the PSC dual shear tie rod clamp for the ram assist. And last but certainly not least, once we get everything on, we have our toe plates, which will be able to do sort of a self-alignment right here in the garage, get it ready to go on trails and get the beer to Tony's wedding before you know it. And a mistake you only learn one time, start with the axle side. Ask me how I know. All right, so now that we got everything loosely bolted in, finger tight, nothing torqued until we're on the ground. But before we do that, we're gonna go ahead and throw these toe plates on and get everything up to alignment standards. All right, so we got our toe plates on. With the toe plate package comes the toe plates, one for each side, 2 tape measures, and our instruction sheet. For our instruction sheet, it comes with the dimensions for towing in inches and in degrees. What we recommend is a 1/4 inch of toe out total. That's when you measure the difference between the two, that should be 1/4 inch longer than the back. That'll give you 1/2 degree. It's what we recommend.
Hi. I had to jump in here. I was editing this video and I realized that Mike is setting up the front steering on the CJL-10 in a way that is a little bit different than I normally do it. But he might be onto something that I hadn't ever considered. So here's the thing. He's put these alignment plates on the hubs and he's setting up the front axle, the front steering, to have a 1/2 degree of toe out. What is toe and what is toe out? Well, toe is whether the front of the front tires is closer or farther apart than the back of the front tires. So when I set up a vehicle, I usually set it up with about 1/8 of an inch of toe in, meaning I shorten up the tie rod to bring the tires in so that the front of the tires are 1/8 of an inch closer than the back of the tires. Now, what SteerSmart suggests is that you actually set it up with a 1/2 degree of toe out. And the reason they suggest that is because they have done significant testing against death wobble, where you're driving these vehicles and you hit an obstacle maybe with one tire and it may start a resonance that then transfers into death wobble. If you don't know what death wobble is, you might have seen it or felt it in a 4-wheel drive, often a solid axle vehicle, where you hit something at speed and the front end starts to shimmy and you almost have to pull the whole vehicle over in order to get it under control to start driving again. I have always set up vehicles with toe in. SteerSmart suggests if you go to a little bit of toe out, it may actually counter that. Now, death wobble is an elusive problem. It can be affected by tires, tire size, tire brand, the way the vehicle is set up, caster, camber. all types of things can affect death wobble or cause death wobble or help start death wobble. So I don't know that setting the toe is the one thing that's going to solve it, but SteerSmarts has done testing and they believe that this is a good solution, or at least it will help, it will reduce death wobble. So if you have a vehicle that has death wobble and you're not sure what to do about it, maybe try this. Maybe try giving it a little bit of toe out, half a degree, and that might help counter the death wobble. I am not going to change this on the vehicle. Even though most of my 4x4s that I've ever built, I've always set them up with toe in. On this vehicle, on the CJL-10, I'm going to leave it set to toe out. I do think that toe out might increase tire wear, though it doesn't really make sense as to why a tire that is towed out would have any more tire wear than a tire that's towed in, because you're kind of driving down the road not neutral. The tires aren't going straight. They're going at a little bit of an angle. So I don't really see how toe in or toe out would affect tire wear. But I do know that a lot of people will bring this up and they will argue, oh, it's got to be toe in, it's got to be toe out. I think it's interesting that SteerSmarts says set it up with toe out, and that might help counter death wobble. So just wanted to touch base on that because I know it's coming in the comments below, and I think it's interesting that SteerSmarts sets it up this way, and we will see if it makes any difference on the CJL-10. All right, back to the video.
And also, just as a quick note, we do have an angle finder on this. You want to make sure your toe plates are level as you're doing your measurements. Unfortunately, we don't send those, but you can find something at home, angle finder or bubble level, anything like that, to make sure you're nice and level as you're getting your measurements. So right now, looking at our measurements, we're about a ½ inch toe total out. So we need to adjust it in a few turns to get to that perfect ½ inch out total. So we got our toe set how we want it to be. Gonna go ahead and start torquing a few things in. With our Pro Series clamps, those are gonna be torqued to 85 foot-pounds. On the Pro Series low profile track bar clamps, those are gonna be set anywhere between 18 and 20 foot-pounds. We're gonna leave the the drag link loose right now, just because we still have to center the steering wheel, but otherwise we can torque the drag link ends, the tie rod ends. We are not gonna torque the track bar yet until it is on the ground. So with that, we got a special little crow's foot to get to that nut on top of the pitman arm. All right, so moving on to the rear. Now, currently we have a JL rear track bar in place with the Ultimate Dana 80. As you can see, it's a much bigger differential, so we're gonna switch it up a little bit, get a little extra clearance for Fred as he's bopping down the trails, make sure he doesn't crash. This is actually a JK rear end track bar with the JK front adjuster sleeve. So it'll get us to the length we need and give us a little bit more of a kick out to avoid that differential. And Fred will be able to have a nice, comfortable ride in the back with the polyurethane bushings too. Let's do it.
Nice, comfortable ride in the back.
Yay! For the beer, so it doesn't get all foamy.
Farm trucks have bumpers made out of pipes, and I've always wanted to try putting pipe caps on a pipe for a pipe bumper. And I didn't really want just a nasty old pipe bumper, so I had to figure out some way to put a little flair to it. So this is 5-inch Schedule 40 pipe with these pipe caps that are welded on, and then I notched the whole inside of it so that it ties into the frame, but also ties into the winch plate. So that if the winch is under load, if this was to fail, it would literally have to bend this entire pipe open and rip it out. So it's much stronger than it was before, because this was just welded to the inside of that rectangular tubing. But it gives it some look. I don't know, I think it's kind of neat. Kind of looks like a Tylenol capsule, which I probably need by the end of this project. But it's got this cool little stubby look. It's round, kind of goes with the whole build. and it's something I haven't done before, and I've always wanted to try this. So I think it looks pretty neat. I haven't seen very many other rigs built with these, so I wanted to see if I could make it look cool.
Ready? Damn, dude, holy moly.
Thanks.
We're down to the wire, man. What the heck?
Like to work?
Yeah, good. Good work. We're gonna have a really long night. Really long night. Supposed to leave tomorrow.
A little faster.
Weld faster, work harder.
Okay, do start there. So if you want to, everything on the reservoir is tightened up. Check the back of the pump, see if that's tightened up, and then tighten up these fittings on the gearbox. Yeah, none of that got
It is, what time is it? 9:32. Our goal was to be done at midnight today, and it's 9:32. We have everything bolted on that we want to do. All the lights are mounted, the bed is mounted. The biggest issue that we have left is we have not actually heard the thing run since the engine was in the other chassis. So, will it run and drive? But it really doesn't matter because it just needs to get on the trailer, go to Canada, park at the reception, serve beer out of the back. But it would be nice to make the thing run so that we don't have to winch it onto the trailer. So, moment of truth. And grab a light and be ready to top off the power steering fluid. Oh, geez. I need a shorter truck. Okay. Clear.
Clear, clear, clear.
Huh. The steering column is, it's like the key is not connected anymore. That's a problem. All right, this is take two of starting the engine. Apparently there was the rod on the key, got moved, and it fell out of the line with the plug when we were working on the switches. But we got it all back together, and we lost one screw, but it's going to start even without one screw. if there's one screw loose in this shop, it's probably amongst the three of us here. Okay, I'm going to set all these tools out of the way, and we will make engine noises now. Okay, jeez. Tall Jeep, all right. Engine is in park, don't stand in front of it. Cranking. Cranking. It's gonna start now. It's gonna just fire right up. Watch your fingers and toes. Whoa.
Have we ever tried the starter again?
Watch your fingers. Cranking. You know what's nice? It's just laying on the floor and not
Actually doing anything? For a moment.
like it's so nice and cool. My sore back.
Yeah.
What do you have that's that size? That's the closest I got until we go to an adjustable. Oh, that's not gonna work. Well, I guess we could put the thing in gear and rock it back and forth, but it's got an automatic, so I don't really know if that's gonna.
So there's no inspection, question or anything.
Did Tony actually get this starter rebuilt, or did he just take it to Canada and like wave some?
Shake it around. Made a syrup pack. This fixes all things. Amen.
God save the Queen and this starter. All right, I'm gonna try it one more time, see if anything spins.
There. Yeah. Is the fuel pumping again?
Is the fuel pumping?
Our drips have returned, so something's getting moved.
Get the go juice. It's over there on the blue shelf. This will either start it or blow the bottom.
Either way.
Either way, it will be cool. Don't do this at home, kids. If this is your very first diesel engine, this is not a good idea.
Exactly what you don't do. Stand a little bit further back.
Engine masters.
No, take it up.
Can. It sounds terrible. It sounds like it has no power.
Yeah, it sounds so...
I think that's victory. It doesn't run right. We have a fuel leak. The electric shutoff is not electrically shutting off, so you have to get out and move a lever to shut it off, so it probably needs a cable shut off. Other than that, it's perfect. It's amazing. I have the best crew in the whole world. I've yelled at Mike every day, 5 times a day, and he has become the greatest mechanic I've ever worked with.
Holy shit.
I don't know. No, you can't say that. What I meant to say was he's fired after this. No, it's great. We're going to fiddle with it some more. Tomorrow we're putting it on the trailer and going to Canada to get it to the wedding. It may or may not drive on the trailer, but we will get it. We'll do some stuff. All right, that's it. We stayed late last night. We got the CJL-10 done. It runs. It took a little bit of a hiccup to get it running, but it's running now. We have a brake line that's leaking, but that's kind of normal for a fresh build. And overall, it looks really cool. It kind of has that look that I was going for, where it's kind of a crusty old farm truck, but it's got all brand new cool stuff underneath, other than the engine and transmission, which we took it for a tiny little spin last night in the dark. It does not have a lot of power, but that's not the point right now. The point right now is we got to get this thing on the truck, head to the brewery and pick up some beer, and then get up to the wedding so that Tony and Natalie can have beer at their reception. That's it. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks to Steer Smarts for helping us out. Thanks for Mike and Tony for helping me wrench, and all of Tony's cronies who showed up throughout the project. They were priceless. It was so nice to have guys that could walk in and I could just give them a project and they could jump right on it. But I think it's really cool. There's still a bunch of little things I'm going to do when I get back to California, but overall it looks really neat. You can see this thing. It will be at the SEMA show if you are going to the SEMA show, and I'll probably have it out on the trail, so stay tuned. You're going to start for me one more time?
now, my friends, I pronounce you man and wife.
Congratulations to Tony and Natalie on their wedding. Congratulations to me and Tony and our buddy Mike for finishing this truck.
We did it.
Thanks to the friends at Something Kent for supplying all the beer.
Yep.
Are you guys ready to try this?
Yes, please. This is great. You're really good at this.
Yeah. You guys should get part this.
Oh, you're supposed to put an angle on it. No, you're not down. Oh.
Here, this one's for you.
Woo! Hey, you did a better pour.
Here we go.
He likes me better.
Boom.
Nice.
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Are you going to have one with us?
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'll take this.
Yeah, there you go.
Cheers.
Cheers. It's good. A little foamy, but it's good. Yeah.
That's it for this Store Daily. We'll see you guys next.